подходит, да? Хорошо.
Okay, so let's start, and we will be joined in 2 minutes by a colleague from Malaysia. Dear colleagues, dear friends, today in the framework of Islamic Forum, we gathered together here in order to have a discussion dedicated to strategic dialogue of infrastructural industrial sites, prospects for the development of industrial clusters and technological exchange between Russia and the OIS countries. And from the very start, I'd like to note that when we talk about technological industrial sites, we are guided by the already existing infrastructure that is presented by industrial, technological parks and other types of technological parks, because we've gone through all the times and periods when techno parks was for R&D, for the development of new innovative projects. Now we are guided by the needs of businesses and industrial production, manufacturing. And today with us we have a very high qualified community experts that will be speaking at our session today. And as we continue our session, I will introduce these colleagues. In the Russian Federation, speaking about our country, I'm a director of association. My name is Mikhail Labudin, and I'm a director of association of technological parks and special economic zone from Russia. And we've adopted systemic approach long ago, and we focus on unification and standardization of such infrastructures, technological, industrial parks and special economic zones. And speaking about 12, 13 years ago when we started, back then we didn't have any regulatory framework. Now we do have all the enactments, rulings and laws that regulate the activities, such infrastructure in our country. And as association we develop our state standards and all the requirements towards those sites, the residents of those technological parks. Quite recently we've elaborated and we've registered a standard for sustainable development for infrastructural sites. And today, when we've gathered so many times and we've discussed the topic related to cooperation between managing companies, the technological parks, residents that are looking into expansion of their businesses, entering new international markets, and we have to find responses to certain questions that serve as limitations and constraints. And 30 minutes ago we finished a session with Delovaya Russia where we discussed the same issues, and I liked the statement of one of the bankers. He said that we need to start why is the business entering this or that country's market, what will happen in that country, will they have the need in accordance with the specific standards if we talk about some Russian businesses entering international markets. And there are a lot of specific features related to marketing and different types of campaigns that have to be taken into consideration. So these events, like today's session, give us an opportunity, first of all, to familiarize ourselves with the issues, to get to know each other, to get to know the rules of the game on the territories of those countries that have their own technological parks, technological sites. And of course, to embark on a dialogue and agree upon certain things. Before I'm asking as a director of association, because we have more than 4,000 different technological parks and special zones presented in our organization, so before I tell them let's put forward some proposals, let's enter some of the market, they will ask me who will be the customer, what support measures can be offered to us. So that is what we will be talking about today at this session, and I see many familiar faces at this session, and we have almost the same audience. For example, in Belarus, we went there with a business mission, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan. Yesterday we had a very fruitful discussion with the United Arab Emirates, and we have the representatives of the Special Economic Zone with us today. So we have this good group of people, and together we will be talking about the development in the framework of international agenda. And in order to continue this topic with the statement that I've already made, what is happening in the Russian Federation, I'd like to give the floor to the head of International Cooperation Department, Timofey Buneyev, and he will deliver his speech dedicated to the current status in terms of international activities, in terms of interaction with infrastructural sites and platforms, and some proposals that he can put forward so that today at this session we can discuss all those matters. Timofey, the floor is yours. Thank you very much for giving me the floor for the introduction. Dear colleagues, as of today, in the framework of our very informative dialogue, the development of a multilateral interaction between industrial sites and platforms, let's talk about the existing situation in Russia. Our goal today is to get to know each other, so my speech will be focused primarily on the infrastructure, getting to know the infrastructure that we currently have in Russia. Mikhail Alexandrovich has mentioned some brief facts. We've been working since 2011, and we have more than 4,000 organizations from 56 regions and a very expansive geography we have in the association, and the members of our association are present in all the constituent entities of the Russian Federation. The Association of Technological Parks and Special Economic Zone is doing a great analytical work, and we present annually a navigator and business navigator for technological parks, and our association also performs the work related to the navigator between Russia and the Republic of Belarus. As Mikhail has mentioned, it's a regulatory work, elaboration of requirements and state standards, and since 2023 we've elaborated and we've approved the standard of sustainable development of managing companies and industrial sites. These are general requirements that are aimed at the prospects and development of the industry, and we see how infrastructural sites are more and more focusing on their social, environmental responsibility, and they improve the quality of corporate management. Everything is now fixed in the SDG goals, and the association has analyzed all the best practices from various countries in the industry, so that the members of our association do not have any problems finding the necessary requirements and the standards. We've unified and we've systematized this document with 70 indicators for sustainable development, and it completely gives us an understanding of how we should prepare all the accounting management figures and the analytical work, and more than 10 special economic zones and technological parks are already utilizing it. Dear colleagues, speaking about infrastructure, I'd like to first of all start with technological parks. in accordance with federal law on industrial policy. In Russia, we have 3 types of technological parks: industrial technological parks, industrial and high-tech tech parks, and quite recently, we have identified this type of high-tech industrial technological parks, and I'd like to note that there are a lot of such parks in Russia, and the major concentration of them can be found in the central region, and more than 20 sites are based right there. And specifically, I'd like to note that many of those zones and technological parks are included into the register of the Ministry of Industry and Trade, and that is what gives them the opportunity to ask for support measures. And our statistics, federal statistics, shows the growth of the number of such sites and technological parks. And in the address of our president, he mentioned that we need to create and to develop, to improve the conditions and infrastructure offered to those zones. And we as associations see the needs of the businesses, we see their requests, and there are always grounds and reasons for such needs and requests. So there is a need for growth, and these platforms, they do provide a stimulus for the overall development of their national manufacturing. Dear colleagues, I would like also to note that such a diversity of special economic zones in the Russian Federation can be characterized by the following. We have the technological implementation, industrial, special economic zone, and they are present in 45 regions of the Russian Federation, and the majority of such zones are industrial manufacturing zones. Dear colleagues, I'd like to continue saying about state measures, support measures that exist. As of today in Russia, we will not go deep into the detail, into the regulatory matters. We can identify the following: the reimbursement of the part of costs for the development of the infrastructure through the constituent entity of the Russian Federation, and to managing companies, the preferential regime, some discounts that can be offered to businesses, some incentives, and also the benefits and special rates for loans, discounted loans. And I'd like to specifically mention in technological industrial clusters. Before, I've mentioned some information about industrial sites that exist in Russia, and I've also mentioned support measures. But I'd like to add, saying that industrial site is a place where an investor can optimize the costs, executing his or her project quite in a short period of time. And as a source of getting those projects, I'd like to give you the information that will explain all of that, explaining everything about 63 technological clusters. That's the majority of them is included into the register of the Ministry of Industry and Trade. Technological cluster is a list of enterprises that are interacting in order to provide the final. I'd like also to say успеваем. Is the speed of some speech matters in terms of interpretation. Thank you. So if we analyze, dear colleagues, and all the levels, what these technological clusters are manufacturing, in the majority of the cases, we will see that we use foreign raw materials, And here we are interested that such niches in technological clusters can be substituted or replaced by diversification of enterprises or attracting foreign investors from friendly countries. And in continuation, I'd like to show you a specific example of such an industrial technological cluster. So if we look at its specificity, we will see some interesting investment niches that can be entered by such enterprises. We are analyzing the needs of these clusters, and we are looking for investment appeal niches that can be interesting for an investor. And when an investor sees all the specific features of this cluster, he sees all the numbers, all the figures, he understands the needs of the industry, and he understands how he can scale up the process and the income, how the income can be increased. And of course, a very important task is being resolved because the costs are cut down in terms of the time that can be saved, as well as money, because we have all the necessary industrial connectivity and all the industrial chains in place. So that is how we respond to two key questions: what can we manufacture in which volumes, and the second point, on which sites we can do that in order to decrease the costs, where we can locate manufacturing facilities. Because I've mentioned before that we have some territories in the Russian Federation with preferential regime where businesses can enter technological clusters, and then they can analyze the regions that can be more interesting for them. Timofey, dear colleagues, I'd like to focus upon one important thing and pay attention to this slide. So, over the last 30 years, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, we, as a country, in terms of industrial manufacturing in major part of the industries, we depended on import, and these figures that are represented on this slide is exactly what we see in reality in terms of substitution and replacement of the partners that used to be present in industrial chains before. And of course, we can't just put an end to the manufacturing process of end products. And when we say that we need to replenish some investment niches, there are two key factors. Either it is a national Russian business that is ready to be diversified, and that is how it happened in many regions of Russia, or it can be a foreign investor, a partner who is ready to enter these types of manufacturing and can enter such technological industrial clusters. And if we talk about all these 63 technological clusters with more than 600 enterprises, we can scale up such orders, and then an investor can get a wider range and a vision for different types of products. And now the floor is yours. Back again. Thank you, Mikhail. Dear colleagues, to conclude, I'd like to reiterate saying that our topic today is the strategic dialogue between industrial sites. Dear colleagues, many of you already know, but I see some new faces present in the audience as well. So I'm kind of forced to reiterate and to repeat certain things. A very important initiative that is being implemented together with the Ministry of Economic Development between our association, the creation, the establishment of a special association of BRICS countries. We do see the business needs and the business requests on the part of Russian companies and their foreign counterparts. So we see this need for cooperation, for interaction, for business experience exchange, and this is a priority that is being shamed on the market. So we are focusing, as well as our member states in BRICS countries and this macro region. So, dear colleagues, the establishment of international association is primarily focused on the development of relationships and exchange of our experience in order to formulate single unified rules of the game, and it will also facilitate the process for investors, and it will be easier for them to sell their products in various member states, and it is very difficult to understand everything about the standards, about requirements and laws existing in various countries, and the association can help with this understanding of the preferential regime. It will be very beneficial for the businesses to understand those matters better, and in general it will improve their investment appeal, and it will help us to execute successfully large projects that will meet all the needs of the members of international association.
Let's give a round of applause to Timothy. Distinguished colleagues, let me make a very brief wrap-up of what has been said. First and foremost, we've got all the reference materials regarding the business platforms and special economic zones, with all the statistics, indicators, infrastructure and tax allowances. Second, all the regulations and laws are in place, and this allows us to be absolutely transparent in doing business, both when you approach residents or when you establish a technopark or a special economic zone yourself. There is going to be ample support according to state standards, the so-called GOST, that identifies all the parameters for this area and who can be entitled the status of a resident for that area. This standard brings together best global practices, thus allowing developers to satisfy the ECG requirements. And ultimately, there is economic feasibility that is calculated and analyzed by looking at cooperation chains that do exist in Russia. So my understanding, you are ready to share, you're ready to learn more information, and the same stands for us. We would welcome best practices to adopt them in Russia. Dear colleagues, I would like to give the floor to our next speaker, and so as to ensure that our words and our presentations match the reality and are not just a mere theory, I would like to give the floor to Dias Safin, who is the General Director of the Idea, Innovation and Production Technopark that brings together myriads of competencies and best practices. Well, Dias, you're the person to appreciate a lot, but I should say that today we are overwhelmed with projects and residents, which actually deteriorates your investment attractiveness, as opposite to such areas, such platforms that still operate available resources. I believe that a technopark with such a huge background in history cannot just stagnate. So what is your vision of the future? What pathway are you going to follow in Russia in order to attract new investment projects? How do you get adjusted to the ambient environment and the political situation? Could you please share your experience a little bit? And then we are going to give the floor to representatives of other countries for them to share their valuable experience. Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. Our Technopark is there for over 20 years, and we pursue to provide comfortable environment to our residents and to companies that do business in Russia. As a Technopark, we are located in the very downtown of the city of Kazan, and therefore we are attractive in terms of the location, both for businesses, offices, and research labs and R&D companies. The central location gives us the opportunity to ensure accessibility. Therefore, our residents can benefit from all the infrastructure of Kazan. However, such central location impacts our daily practices. On a daily basis, we develop innovative projects that would stimulate the development of the Republic of Tatarstan. We promote analytics to develop advanced state-of-the-art projects. On this slide, you may see a few of our residents, and each of them has a story behind. But I would like to focus and dwell a little bit on the Aidus Medicine company. This company came to us 10 years ago. And I remember there were two individuals who carried inside the Technopark a truck, and they wanted to simulate the equipment to allow promising drivers train on this robotic technology to pass driving license exams. Now these guys are into medical robotics and telemedicine. So they're doing a great job. We have innovative infrastructure that we provide to our residents in such a way that the businesses we cooperate with usually deliver on orders by governmental institutions, universities, and large businesses and manufacturers in Russia. Our aspiration is to be a platform for large R&D centers. Why? As you have seen on the previous slide, the hectares that we operate and that are almost filled to the top, we cannot expand due to the location in the city center, because we cannot disrupt the city landscape, we cannot go down ground because metro is there. So therefore, we are looking for new locations. We would like to offer different areas to R&D companies, larger areas that would be able to house manufacturing equipment, including small-scale manufacturing. We have a few leading companies that have achieved tremendous results together with us. For example, the GKS company, the first to the left on the slide. This is an oil and gas company that is doing both upstream and downstream. Today, they're responsible for 10% of gas production in Russia. The SmartHead company is a premium segment internet advertising company. The STP company is a leading meteorological and meteorological lab in Russia. According to the Republic of Tatarstan ranking, we are a development institution, and therefore we are looking forward to work in different areas and different industries, not only with the Republic of Tatarstan government, but also with the academia, scholars, businesses, enterprises. We are an intermediary between universities and manufacturers. And to ensure that everything runs well, we decided to obtain the status of a regional operator by Skolkovo Foundation. We have specific competences in specific industries, including energy, power generation, oil and gas, electronics, and robotics. Well, the rest is managed by the IT Park, our neighbors. Over the last 10 years, we are top 10 in the Association of Cluster and Technoparks of Russia ranking. So we are keeping our sentiments high, because down there is only earth. We don't want to fall back to the earth. We want to fly high. Our pool of experts includes numerous experts. We are the regional representative of the Botnik Foundation. We were able to attract 4.2 billion rubles to the Republic of Tatarstan. And today, 442 students have become millionaires in the Republic of Tatarstan. They have earned their first million. And this is how we... You mean they are dollar millionaires or what? No, ruble millionaires so far. But that's a lot. We never forget that a technopark must communicate and offer growth opportunities for young entrepreneurs. And in this respect, we also have the shipbuilding and aircraft building school. So we provide training as well, so as to attract handy people who can weld, saw, or who can manufacture something with their own hands and not just spend the entire day typing at the keyboard of a computer. So everyone is welcome, not only students from Tatarstan, but also from other constituents of Russia. Last year, we decided to satisfy the demand on behalf of the Tatarstan enterprises for new design and implementation of new design. Therefore, we established material analytics labs and inter-industrial reverse engineering center. That was an exciting experience that involves both our labs as well as partner labs for prototyping and design. So actually, it's an entire chain, with us being the key enabler and other enterprises, including the reverse engineering center, being driven by us. So we are like a train where there are carriages, the enterprises, and us as the key driver. So first, we decided to stage up the material analytics lab, and then we established the technological map, or a flow chart, to implement these decisions in reality. Therefore, to this end, we have the resource center of the Kazan Technical College that we cooperate with. In this respect, we are open for further cooperation. Everyone is invited to cooperate with us in reverse engineering. On top of that, we are a buffer for the academia and Tatarstan enterprises. And actually, in fact, it's a little bit stressful for both sides to cooperate together without any intermediary. So therefore, we are this intermediary because we know the demands of both parties and know everything about their aspirations and can adjust those to one another. Here you may see our key industrial areas that are our focus. Those are microelectronics, equipment manufacturing and design, robotics, oil and gas, oil chemistry. Well, that's it. I'm open to cooperation and communication. Thank you so much. I know that you've got lots of plans. You're going to launch new platforms, and I believe that in this respect, your contact information is highly valuable to all of us. So if anyone is attracted by the Republic of Tatarstan, so do approach us with your projects and we would be happy to help you. Okay, colleagues, let's move on. Yesterday we had an exciting meeting with the representatives of KEZAD Group, the United Arab Emirates, where we met esteemed Jamila Ahli. Yesterday we had an exciting meeting and exchanged opinions about how the UAE runs businesses and how the KEZAD Group implements its projects across the 12 free economic zones, including the Khalifa Abu Dhabi economic zone. And therefore my questions to Madam Jamili. Could you please say a few words about Khalifa Abu Dhabi economic zones, and how does KEZAD Group manage to enhance cooperation and business relations? Is KEZAD supported by any other Russian and international companies? What functions does the Eurasian Trade and Industrial Hub established in KEZAD fulfill? We know that there are 5 economic zones in Abu Dhabi that successfully cooperate with each other. Could you share your experience of how KEZAD builds cooperation with economic zones within the Emirate of Abu Dhabi and with international infrastructure platforms, and whether this cooperation gives a positive result? Please.
Thank you. Okay, so let me start by introducing KEZAD Group. Basically, KEZAD is the Khalifa economic zones of Abu Dhabi. We have a few slides. Yes, the slides are here. Okay, perfect. So KEZAD is the industrial hub of Abu Dhabi and the trade and logistics hub of Abu Dhabi, where 60% of the industrial activity takes place in the UAE takes place in Abu Dhabi. We cover 12 economic zones spread across 550 square kilometers of land, And currently we have 2,000 investors that we are hosting within Abu Dhabi. So basically the economic zones encompasses both free zone and mainland activities. And as a matter of fact, the mainland activity is around 450 square kilometer, where the free zone is 100 square kilometers. And this is primarily because of demand on the mainland versus free zone, but it's still quite a relevant amount of size. So when it comes to promoting collaboration within the economic zones of KEZAD, we take a clustered approach in KEZAD. So basically we have around 17 clusters in our economic zones, ranging from metals, polymers, to automotives, as well as the new industries that we are developing within the pipeline and in accordance to the Abu Dhabi government's strategy, such as life sciences and F&B. And basically what we've done in each of these clusters is that we've attracted upstream, midstream, and downstream industries to be part of each of these clusters, where basically they collaborate to ensure sustainable growth for all of the companies that are based in each of these clusters. When it comes to the Russian company's support and interest with regards to establishing a presence within KEZAD, basically we had formed a strategic alliance with the Eurasian Hub, where basically they take care of Russian companies that are interested in establishing a presence within the United Arab Emirates. So part of their remit is to connect them with the right people within Abu Dhabi, but also support them with market entry strategies as well as business matching to ensure that they don't only set up well within the UAE, but also beyond. So as Mikhail mentioned, we have 5 different economic zones within Abu Dhabi, and we collaborate in several ways in terms of each of the economic zones in Abu Dhabi have a specialty. So when an international investor comes to us, or an international company comes to us, or when we reach out to them, depending on their expertise and what they require as a company to establish a presence in the market, we connect them to the right people within the ecosystem. So for example, majority of the time the businesses are relevant to KEZAD and they are industrial, so we host them within KEZAD. However, sometimes they could be better suited within, let's say, Hub 71, as they're, for example, a technological startup. So we connect them to the right people within Abu Dhabi. But not only that, we also support them with regards to connections within the right governmental entities that they would require to ease their entry into the market. And before I end the presentation, just to also answer Mikhail's question on international collaboration with economic zones, basically we form strategic alliances and partnerships with them, ranging from knowledge sharing up to MOU signing. And as Mikhail mentioned, we're recently opened up conversations to potentially collaborate as well with the special economic zones within Russia and the techno parks as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Jamila. Thank you. Thanks a lot. I think that this is the first step that we've taken towards each other in order, in the framework of our international cooperation, to approximate, to bring together the positions, and we've listened about how you provide the support in your economic zones, in your platforms, and we continue with our agenda and we move towards the interests of the Republic of Uzbekistan. And now I'd like to give the floor to trade representative from Uzbekistan, Mr. Konstantin Zlygostev. So the floor is yours. Of course, we do understand that the major task is to perform trade industrial activities, and as a representative of the Russian Federation in Uzbekistan, you know the essence of the situation, you know what can be offered to Russian businesses, and you do understand everything about the business platforms, the sites where you can locate new projects. And I'd like to ask you to share your experience about which projects have been implemented so far, and what are the barriers, the hurdles for their successful execution in future. Thank you very much, Mikhail. Thank you for giving me the floor and for the opportunity to speak at today's session. Before I come to the essence and response to these two questions, I'd like to briefly give you an understanding of the existing status of relationships between Russia and Uzbekistan. Of course, we are a strategic partner of Russia in Central Asia, and in spite of huge pressure that our country and some friendly countries are going through and are exposed to in recent years, our trade connections with Uzbekistan are developing quite dynamically. Speaking about the figures, as a result of 2023, we almost reached $10 billion, 9.9, and the leaders of our countries set the task to double it in the short term to reach the figure of $20 billion. It's an ambitious task, but in general we do understand how we can achieve it, and the major task in this regard is to move away, allow me to mention that, from some primitive export-import operations when you sell something or you purchase something, to localize manufacturing facilities, and primarily I'm talking about manufacturing of Russian companies on the territory of Uzbekistan. And this is the trend that we've observed for the past 4 years. It is of interest for the companies. And speaking about interesting industries for our companies and Uzbekistani counterparts, it's easier to mention the industries where we are not interested in cooperation, and oil and gas, the metalworks, the food industry. All of these industries are interesting, and it is easier to mention. Maybe shipbuilding is not one of such industries, but Uzbekistan does not have an access to the sea, and that's why this is the industry quite problematic to be developed in our country. But Russia is the leader of joint ventures that have been established for the past 4 years, and overall about 11,000 enterprises, JVs, have been established, and the majority of them were invested by Russian companies, and several of them have been opened and established recently. And Uzbekistan is a high competitive market, and there are many other representatives of other countries that are present there. The Persian Gulf countries, and Turkey is our traditional partner, South Korea, of course China. But nevertheless, Russian companies that come to our trade representative office, we recommend them when they enter Uzbekistani market to understand straight away what they can offer as a competitive advantage. Services, maintenance, if we talk about specific industries and products, and even more important for Uzbekistan, they can offer some training programs and improving their qualification, advanced training. And the problem with the personnel is a common problem for many countries, and for our country, for Uzbekistan as well. We are not an exception here. And now I'd like to respond to the questions and to get back to the topic of our session. In March 2022, in Tashkent region, in Cherchik city, by efforts of Himgrad company, they opened the first joint technological park, and over the last 2.5 years has demonstrated the success of such a format of mutual cooperation, and it was requested by the president of Uzbekistan, and he personally asked that from the president of the Republic of Tatarstan, and this is the only head of state, Mr. Minnikhanov, with whom our president has personal meetings when he comes there, and of course it is of great benefit for the exchange of experience, so that technological parks from Tatarstan, they were the first one to enter the market of Uzbekistan. And in 2023, this practice has been scaled up. In Jizaki region, the same technological park was opened and established. And when we opened it, the president of Uzbekistan asked to continue doing this work, and also some companies like Techmaster and Sezalabuga from Tatarstan are elaborating their strategy for the execution in Novaiska and Bukharska region of Uzbekistan. And yesterday we had the panel session dedicated to the development of such dialogue, and some plans have been shared. They found an Anchor resident, Ernest company, Russian company, one of the leading companies in the cosmetics industry. They will be executing a huge project for the production of the aluminium. And Dias Nurgalievich, I'd like to offer you, because now we've led this way, and you can join, colleagues, and we are ready to think about the strategy. If it is interesting for your parks and colleagues from Uzbekistan, I think can share a lot, and I think that everything you do in the framework of your project, it can be interesting, and yes, with great pleasure we can talk about it. We would like to take part in the projects, because we have experience in working in these industries of the same projects, and we are very glad to hear about the success that they have achieved. Thank you very much. So that is the way forward for us there. Mikhail Alexandrovich, taking into consideration that I'm not the only person representing Uzbekistan, I have my friend and colleague, Mr. Abdullayev, who will be talking about it as well. Not to take everything to my ground, and I'd like to conclude my speech, my theoretical speech, and he will focus more on the practical matters, and I'm sure that he will give us an interesting overview as well, probably something that I've missed. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's nice to hear that we have a very friendly environment, atmosphere that you are working with as a trade representative of Uzbekistan, is that you are closely interacting with the executive management, the head of state of Uzbekistan, and together with us we have the head of one of the oldest economic zone of Uzbekistan, Mr. Habib. So we've met each other and we spoke about our plans for the future. So as it has been mentioned, more than 100 investment projects are being executed as of today on your territory, and part of these projects, I think, are implemented on the territories of the special open economic zone, which is the same platform or the same site, which is quite similar to industrial parks, technological parks. There are some differences in some financial and technological parameters. So I'd like to ask you about your experience of interaction with the international partners, investors, residents. Which hurdles, constraints, barriers do you see? Do you support this a kind of synchronization and the formulation, elaboration of some common requirements and standards in the Islamic world, what we are discussing today? Maybe you have some proposals to bring our standpoints and positions together. Dear colleagues, good afternoon. Well, we are the oldest zone. It was established back in 2009. I won't be modest here. I will not go deep into the propaganda about achievements of Uzbekistan, and I agree with Mikhail that it is all gets down to the motivation, because all infrastructural projects, including special economic zone, their goal is to meet business needs, because business needs to have a safe environment to get profit. And of course, indeed, as our coordinator, moderator of the panel has noted many times today, the basis is all about the main question: where will the services, the products go after they are manufactured, produced on the territories of special economic zones? Talking about the tasks of Russian companies in Uzbekistan, what I've seen over the recent years, and the major groups of companies, the companies that are primarily interested in selling products, and they are not primarily interested in localization. Their main task is to do the foreign external trade. Another growing group is about enterprises that view Uzbekistan as a manufacturing ground for re-export of their products to Russia, and it is related to a number of problems. The sanctions that have been imposed, it's very difficult to pay for spare parts, to get those spare parts, and not everybody is interested in the parallel import schemes, and a good way to do that is to localize it in a friendly jurisdiction and to get the certificate made in Uzbekistan, and then with all the legal grounds to produce their products. And there are already some projects like this that are being executed on our territory. The next group is the companies that have been mentioned by Mikhail. They are interested in the local market, and of course there are some specific features that have to be taken into consideration, because Uzbekistan is an eastern country and it has some specific rules, and these rules are not completely transparent for our foreign partners. There is a lot of work to be done there, and one of our tasks is to help foreign companies to get well-oriented, well-guided on our markets, so that real contracts can be signed. Another important motivation for a group of enterprises, the next group of enterprises, the manufacturing of products for re-export. It's not only about halal products. For some companies of the Middle East, but also it can be about high-tech products, because products that are made in Russia, it cannot be so easily exported to many countries, and made in Uzbekistan certificate can facilitate this process. Another thing, what we mentioned about foreign external trade, there are some transport and logistics services, and in special economic zones they are allowed in Uzbekistan. Before that we had only the activities that were permitted. And just briefly speaking, I've liked maps since I was a child. In green we have Novoliv region, and 95% of the territory is the desert, because there is a lot of types of fossil fuels, and 100% of uranium is produced there, and 80% of gold. Their largest chemical enterprises are also located in this region. And it's interesting that around this huge chemical enterprises, about $5 billion, this is the total price of the chemical cluster that has been established there, with all the necessary chains in place. And I won't be talking about our achievements. It's interesting only for ourselves, but the overall cost price of our projects that have been launched and that are currently being launched amounts to approximately $1 billion. Our region, I won't be mentioning all the details, but I'd like to note two things. This is the most central region of ours, and it also has a very good infrastructure, very rich enterprises, and they're systemic ones with a high qualified personnel. This is the most important feature.
Well, initially the government of Uzbekistan planned to develop this area as a multimodal logistics hub, so that to ensure that the foreign trade runs not only through Tashkent, but also the center of the country. Well, so far we hope that logistics would gain more attention and focus than today. The main characteristic of the free economic zone, Navoi, is that it embraces the entire region. Like in Kaliningrad, the specific economic zone also embraces the whole constituent. This means that there is a lot of vacant space, because many enterprises are located either in the suburbs, on the outskirts, or in the city center. According to law, residents of free and specific economic zones should be located within a perimeter, within the borders of the zone. So in my country we do not have this requirement by law. The profit tax is 15% in my country, and projects that cost over 3 million have a zero tax. There are no tax allowances, in fact, but there are some opportunities to gain preferences, although there are no tax exemptions. Some enterprises use these areas to gain return the finished product to Russia. This is not only due to sanctions, but also to the deficit of a workforce. Therefore, in order to stop the uncontrolled, unregulated flow of migrants and to regulate migration somehow in Russia, Russia decided to relocate production to our country in order not to force migrants to travel. Therefore, transportation of the finished product is important. I mean transportation from Uzbekistan to Russia. And so we have 50% of transportation costs for Russia. If we go back to this slide, so to the left you can see the territory, and it is a great territory in terms of infrastructure, because Uzbekistan has a huge infrastructural deficit, and therefore some sides have a compromised, weak infrastructure. Therefore, in this respect, our economic zone is the safest for high-tech manufacturers. Our residents can be not only production companies, but also trade companies. And this makes us somewhat close to Kazad Group, because now we do have the opportunity to work without registration and taxes. So the cost of the project should be no less than $300,000. Bureaucracy, well, bureaucracy is there. You mean 300,000 into the infrastructure and equipment? Right, right. This is the construction of some building, some structure, equipment, or some turnover finances. So when you deliver equipment, you do not pay the VAT, but you do have the customs costs, and so the customs costs count as well. More so, we also count raw material and spare parts for the first production cycle, which is 12 months usually, which means that, well, for example, the company assembles pumps and they deliver 500 disassembled pumps. They assemble these pumps and they sell them. So, I mean, all of these disassembled pumps that the company buys as raw material, those are also considered to be investment and are counted. But there are really exciting aspects for customs control. In Uzbekistan, any exporter follows a rule that raw materials are not subject to VAT or any customs fees. In Russia, may I highlight, you do have customs fees. But anyway, I believe any young company should have some trust initially. So if you are a resident of Novai, everything is done automatically. So you delivered assembly parts to assemble pumps, and you declare that those pumps go for export, and we trust you. The government trusts you, authorities trust you. To wrap up, I would like to say that, well, yes, indeed, Uzbekistan welcomes any Islamic countries, and currently the aspects that can be most attractive work for Russian companies as well. As for the countries of the Persian Gulf, I believe that these countries can use the territory of Uzbekistan to increase production and to relocate their production and they can benefit from the Made in Uzbekistan certificate, which is truly an asset considering the current political events. A question. Well, I remember that you asked a question about barriers, and I failed to answer this question. But the speaker did not answer these questions as well. Well, there are some limitations and constraints. Well, I'm now in Russia, and it's not very comfortable to talk in Russia about these recent things. So I wouldn't like to highlight those. Well, I should justly say that there are no limitations and constraints in Russia. Well, yes, indeed, Uzbekistan has no customs entry fees, but my colleague from Uzbekistan and I analyzed the issues that normally Russian companies have when they just approach the Uzbekistan market. They sometimes have no understanding of the regulations, and therefore the 2.5 years ago, the Trade Representative Office of the Russian Federation has issued a specific compilation of laws. So the Trade Representative Office of Russia in other countries is responsible for accreditation, licensing, metrology. When we communicate online or live during a business mission, quite often the businesses cannot understand that they can approach someone, some authorities, for free and get help and answers for free to their questions. So you can see there are so many minor details, and therefore the discussions like ours are very practical. Distinguished colleagues, we have another republic here. This is the Republic of Tajikistan. The Republic of Tajikistan is a new type of infrastructure, a business incubator. And together with us, we have Mr. Jurazada, the director of the business incubator of Uzbekistan. Thank you so much, Dilshot, for your time. Today we are talking about industrial parks, free economic zones, technoparks. And you see that there are differences merely in financial parameters and support measures and some technical minor details. If free economic areas are more for a mature business, whereas technoparks are for production, whereas business incubators support SMEs. Well, this is how it stands in Russian Federation, at least. Therefore, I would like to ask you, what projects are you implementing now? What are the perspectives for expansion, and what investors from what countries would you like to attract, considering the small scale of the projects that are run by business incubators? Thank you very much, Michael. Distinguished participants to the forum, I would like to extend my gratitude for the excellent organization of this forum. Yes, indeed, the key objective of the forum is to exchange experience, and I believe that there is a lot of motivation in this area. I would like to represent our business platform that helps SMEs by providing training. So, I mean, we are talking about high tech today, but someone should provide training and education as well. So, as a business platform, we bring together and organize some 500 educational events to support and develop SMEs. Tajikistan and Russia run over $2 billion of trade turnover. Today, 300 companies of Russia work in Tajikistan, and over 600 requests are received from different companies offering partnership or assistance in entering the market of Tajikistan. We are a business incubator. We have capacities and infrastructure to scale up any business in the Republic of Tajikistan, because there are so many startups, so many innovative products that are being under development in Russia. And we are also looking strategically into the Central Asia, and we have a lot to offer. Well, speaking about some specific products and positions, well, although I think this is not the direct objective of this event, but I would like to highlight that we have been founded 4 years ago. We operate across the entire country. Now we are having 9 offices. We started with 3 only. So we can provide assistance in, for example, accommodation, as a mediator of business meetings. We are open to cooperation. Thank you. Thank you. Unification and some common approaches at the level of international cooperation. Would you find this attractive? So that to mainstream the rules and regulations that are imposed by the country authorities on international businesses. Well, naturally, we have ample expertise here. The same is true for Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. There are lots of companies in state-of-the-art industries that already export their product into Russian Federation with the label made in Tajikistan. So rules are common for anyone. So the question is about the scale of the business. And 70% of our population, and our entire population is 10 million people. So 70% is the youth. So we've got a lot of young workforce. Therefore, we need exchange of experience. We need training. And I believe that this is the timely opportunity to expand the capacities of Tajikistan. So we are waiting for products labeled made in Tajikistan in Russia. Distinguished colleagues, today with us is Alexei Nivlov, the representative of the Russian Investment Agency. Alexei, your agency develops relations between the EAC markets, and today Alexei is ready to share his experience with us within the framework of the Europe-Asian space. Thank you. Well, I'm so happy that all the participants of the conference are there. No one is leaving the room. This means that our event is exciting indeed. I'm the Vice President of the Investment Agency of the Eurasian Economic Union. I represent the Eurasian Investment Agency, EIA. Our agency was founded by the Cluster and Technopark Association, as well as other shareholders. Our main objective is to help Russian enterprises and industries to enter markets of friendly countries. So what do? We organize business missions, host meetings and negotiations with representatives of authorities and large corporations. We also attract trade representatives and people of commerce. And We provide for the opportunity to make a tour around a production site, to visit it and to see the equipment. We also provide legal, financial, consultancy services, provide recommendations on logistics and delivery and shipment, insurance, customs. All that together is an unknown land for a young entrepreneur. Therefore, we provide the assistance so that to ensure that young entrepreneurs do everything rightly according to law. We have numerous successful business cases and best practices to share. We have agreements with Myanmar, India, and many other countries. We are also the Secretariat for Business councils between Business Russia and Business Turkmenistan. We are organizing a business mission to Armenia in June this year. There are lots of requests for that, and I also would like to highlight our most fundamental important project. It's a new project which is performed jointly with the Association of Cluster and Specific Economic Areas. Today, we are developing jointly with the Saudi Arabia Kingdom 10 Russian companies that are going to start business in the Saudi Arabia Kingdom. That's a very important step in bilateral relations between the countries. I'm not going to take up more of your time, but here is my presentation. You can see all the information here. I'm going to leave my contact information on the slide so that you can get in touch with me, and I will be happy to email this presentation to you and to answer any questions that you have. You are all also invited to our office in Moscow, and where we can cooperate. We can also organize online meetings. We are available anytime, always, any day. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Alexei. So we should take all the opportunities, we should utilize everything that is offered to you, that is in demand as of today, and I think that your experience can be quite useful for us in terms of our cooperation with Eurasian countries, and our session will be concluded, and it is a good tradition, a good rule, and the audience listens quite well to the first and to the last speaker. And today with us we have Mr. Jaziri Al-Kaf Abdullah Sufyan, the senator from Sarawak State from Malaysia. I know how engaged you are being a senator on the territory of your state with infrastructural sites, and I know how well you work on the implementation of SDG goals and green technology, green environment, and we would like to listen to your stance and your vision, and as you are the last speaker at today's session, you can analyze everything you've heard from other speakers. Maybe you can sum up everything that has been said, what you understood, what you deem as useful. And I have two questions to you. The first one is, of course, we are interested to know about your experience, the green agency, the green agenda, how you develop that in Malaysia, and we as association in Russia, we've elaborated the state standard, the so-called GOST, in alignment with the sustainable development goals, all the requirements for the technological parks, and we elaborated this standard based on the the best practices, international experience in accordance with our national regulation. And of course, as a lawmaker, you view that from this point of view. But of course, in terms of economic viability for the business, can you comment on that as well? And the second point, the second question, we have received a lot of letters about interaction with ASEAN countries, and maybe you can describe the existing infrastructure as a business navigator that we introduced in Russia, what you can offer to potential investors from other countries so that they can select the interesting site and get contact details. So these are the questions to you, please.
Thank you so much, moderator. Seems that I am the last speaker and I have to do a lot of work. And thank you so much, and I'm more than happy to respond to your question and your demand. Thank you so much for inviting me to this auspicious world event, the Kazan Forum. It's a beautiful city, and I look forward to visit Kazan and Russia more. Let me break down your questions and respond to it accordingly. Number one, I think the first one I would like to respond is from our last speaker. I think it was Alexei, if I'm not mistaken. Sorry if I got the name wrong. He mentioned that he's bringing interested business or parties going outside of Russia and going into a potential new market. I would like to accept his challenge, and probably we can work together and bringing businesses and trade, bilateral trade to Malaysia. I would like to get his contact. I think we got this contact earlier, and something that we can offer. What my role in the Senate, of course, we are at the governmental level, of course, G to G, but more importantly, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of this initiative, it has to work on the ground. What it means is that, you know, it has to become a private business initiative. So of course the government has all the facilities to facilitate easiness of businesses between two countries, between example of Malaysia and Russia. But it boils down to who will take up in Malaysia what the businesses or investment that comes in, or again in Russia, how the businesses in Malaysia can participate in the Russian market and ecosystem. That is very interesting. I think we have to work on together with yourself and Mr. Alexei. Number two, I think, let me put Malaysia in the context of how we can collaborate. Malaysia, as you know, is part of the ASEAN region. And the ASEAN region, for everybody's knowledge, is one of the fastest growing region in the world. Okay? It is poised to achieve a target of 1.5 trillion USD by 2030. It's not too far ahead. And of course, Malaysia is part of the ASEAN country, and one of the largest country in ASEAN, our partner, is Indonesia. That's number one. I'm putting into context. Number two is the state of Sarawak. The state of Sarawak is one of the states in Malaysia. And the state of Sarawak is poised again to be the green renewable energy powerhouse for the ASEAN region. We are looking at producing about 20 gigawatt by 2030. At the moment, we are producing about 5.4 gigawatt at the present. So there's a lot of demand, a lot of gap that potentially we can work towards together. So putting into context the growth of ASEAN and the power generation powerhouse of Sarawak in Malaysia, you can see where the trajectory of growth in this region. So I would like to see how we can participate further between the Russian Federation and Malaysia, and see how we can work together in this renewable energy sector. It is very new, it's a very exciting sector, it's something that is very potential and a huge market. So of course, Russia has a lot of high technical expertise and of course technology advance in this area of oil and gas, of course energy, and it's something that we can work together with and is potentially beneficial for both countries. Okay. Again, the state of Sarawak is looking into what do you call this? The state of Sarawak has huge land mass in comparison to other states in Malaysia. It's the largest state in Malaysia, about 125,000 kilometer square in land mass. So a lot of land has not yet been explored, has not yet been utilized. The state of Tatarstan has a big example of agriculture excellence and advancement. We would like to see how you manage your land, get the yield or the return of investment on how you build your land in terms of agriculture and management. And it's something that we also would like to see, because I think this is part of our national and state agenda on food security. It is a very important agenda for us. It is high in the agenda, because if we've managed to tackle this food security, it will bring down the cost of living in Malaysia. That is what we want to do. The cost of living in Malaysia is getting higher and higher because we are doing a lot of import. So we would like to see how we can work together in terms of producing animal feed, for instance, because that is something that we would like to achieve by by 2030. So those are the two key areas that I think we can work on immediately, and probably I would like to echo one of our panelists earlier in terms of education and capacity building. We are a growing nation in terms of industrialization, but in terms of having the ability to produce a lot or more skilled talents, that is quite a challenge for us, because most of our youth, most of our students would usually take the university pathway, and only 25% goes into the vocational and technical. I think this is something that we would like to explore opportunities in how you can train our youngsters, our youth, our students after they finish high school and go into technical and vocational training. And that is a huge, agenda, a huge prospect for the country to propel herself in terms of gaining more presence in the ASEAN region. So when you look into the potential of collaborations between our two nations, between our two countries, those are the three major things that potentially will bring a lot of benefit, not only economically, not only socially, but I think both our country could exchange culture as well. I think that is the essence of building relationship, building more meaningful relationship, which of course will prosper into economic benefit for all of us, not only for ourselves, Malaysia, not only for Russians, but of course the ASEAN region. Again, we're talking about other states or countries that is friendly to us. And thank you so much. And I would like, I'm happy to take any questions if you have. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank Thank you so much. You've touched upon very important aspects indeed, and we as the Russian Federation and other countries as well, other republics, they're paying great attention to that, the personnel, the education, the renewable energy, food security. These are the aspects so important for all the countries. We are now facing the problem of the development, the training of the personnel, and we do need new high qualified professionals in new areas and at all the clusters, sites and all economic zones. Sometimes we can't open technological park because around it we can't find high quality personnel, and we can confirm that we are ready, we are eager to cooperate in accordance with the international projects, international requirements. These projects can be bilateral, multilateral, and it will require competences that are in line with the international requirements related to food security. We all understand what it is all about. I will not go deep into detail, and safety and security is one of the main priorities for all countries. As for renewable energy, the green environment is very important for us, and your competences can be quite useful for us because we do have problems with electricity power supply in some of the territories, some of the regions in Russia. We are open for embarking on a dialogue in renewable energy projects in order to launch such industrial sites as special economic zones, industrial technological parks. Thank you very much for these proposals, and we are quite positive about initiatives to organize business missions both to Russia and to other countries. We as association are ready to render our support in this, to prepare them on a very high quality level, the elaboration of the project for businesses, for companies that are specifically interested in specific business areas. Dear colleagues, we've discussed many aspects. It's not only a conversation. It will be included into the resolution of this forum. We will elaborate this resolution based on what has been proposed. During the session, I'd like to extend my gratitude to the speakers. Thanks for your professionalism, expertise, the competences that you offered to us. We listened attentively to you, and I think that we are all interested in our common goals, and I'd like to reiterate saying that it will be included into the final resolution of the forum, and then it will be submitted to the government of the Russian Federation, and then their respective bodies of our countries will deal with these guidelines, recommendations, to continue working on the elaboration of initiatives. The Ministry of External Affairs, Ministry of Trade and Industry, the Ministry of Economic Development, and then they will deal with that. And thanks a lot to everyone. Thank you for being with us until the end of the session, and I hope that it will be useful in our future work. Thank you very much.